Unusual Force has a lot of styles, most of which are at least half decent. There's styles like Sleuth, Dancer, Fighter, Punisher, and maybe even Slugger that are meta, with a great many strengths that make for styles that are generally consistent with their damage, juggles, potential, and mix-ups. On the lower side of the spectrum, you have styles like Bandit, Tiger, Smasher, and Sake, which when compared to the meta, can be seen as weak, maybe unusable, and absolutely horrid to some. However, these styles are still at least sort of viable and not completely down the gutter. Bandit is usually the one people think of, though. Then there's styles somewhere in the middle. Not styles you'd see someone who's strictly a Metamancer use, but not bad enough to be relatively uncommon. Step, Clinch, Officer, Demon, Boxer, and most of the styles lock behind a soul requirement, excluding Reborn, because that thing's meta too. Or at least boring. Yes, I'm salty about how its most efficient counterplay is playing passive. Regardless, most styles fall into the middle category, with styles in the highest echelon and styles that are ass, but still viable, being easy to place. It's no secret that there's clearly a hierarchy, but what separates a good player from a great one is who can make the really bad styles work. If you're good with something like Dancer, sure, you'll be able to rock basically anybody regardless of skill level. Or at least, you'll bring the pain, even if its stats say weak. But if you're up against someone who's good at, say, Sake, well, you might be in for a nightmare, as it won't take much for them to put you down, even with only one dash. But I've neglected to mention one style that at one point was considered overpowered, brain dead even. One that, to this day, annoys good and bad players, and for good reason. It's the style in the thumbnail, it's the style in the title, the one that has been in my footage, Aiki. And that is because I believe Aiki to be the worst style in the entire game. It's worse than Bandit, it's worse than Sake, it's worse than everything. It's so bad I wouldn't be comfortable placing it in the mere bad style category with styles like the ones I just mentioned, because that'd be giving it way too much credit. No, Aiki is so bad, so ass, so unbelievably terrible, albeit very, very fun. It could make any style look like it's the best. So, let's get into why. Those of you familiar with Unusual Force, Those of you familiar with Unusual Force, more specifically the most recent game which I'm talking about, Unusual Force 4, might be puzzled. Aiki on the surface doesn't seem that bad. Its M1 string only consists of 3 clicks, with the first and third finishers being relatively decent, and the first finisher allowing you to dash forward to land an M2 that can be followed up by your skill 1. The full combo with 3 M1s and the finisher deal decent damage. Aiki's skill 1 is a flying kick with impressive range and decent damage. It's quicker than the drop kicks of Fighter and Dragon, and can more easily be aimed away if you feel you're going to be countered or blocked, and is usually less punishable than the aforementioned drop kicks. It can also be aimed away even after hitting somebody, as it will make your opponent kneel when hit, allowing you to gain some space to safely shave off some of its cooldown or consider what to do next. It can also be confirmed 100% of the time after Aiki's first M1 finisher and Aiki's skill 2, allowing for good follow-up damage. Aiki's skill 2 is a semi-long wind-up hit with super armor with incredible damage that also serves as a guard break, which, if landed on a guarding opponent, will not only break the guard, but still deal skill 2's insane damage, which can be followed up by an M2 or skill 1. This move is excellent for punishing people who love to hold block, or to punish hyper-aggression. It's also a generally good tool for punishing, however due to its wind-up, it may not always be your best option for punishing. Aiki's skill 3 is a counter that deals really good damage. Like other heat actions that are counters, it may be obvious to an opponent that you want to pull it off once you've gone the heat, so I recommend trying to find an actual opportune time to pull it off. Like all other heat actions, it requires 80% heat to pull off. Aiki is incapable of juggling regardless of heat level, however, in the case of gang battle, for example, it can still affect those in the juggle, much like every other style that can't start juggles on their own. So after breaking the style down, it probably seems pretty alright actually. It has a decent approach with good whiff punishes at the cost of no juggles, which doesn't actually matter for Aiki. Solid generally, how could it be bad? It's not like its strengths are offset by something like bad health, unlike Insane or Bandit. So, what's the deal? Well, I personally believe that Aiki is bad because it's a style that's all or nothing with few consistent combos with skills that are not actually as strong as I've maybe led you to believe. Its skill 1 is highly predictable, its skill 2 has a long windup as previously mentioned, and any tiny misstep can make you kiss your heat action goodbye. Plus, there are styles that simply do what it does better. Stomp can extend off its first M1 finisher better, Demon's approach is more consistent and leads to better combos, Fighter's dropkick can be done in its M1 strings, Slugger's bat poke closes distance while letting you get an M1 string off it, Backup's approach is armored and can be comboed into across more finishers, albeit at the cost of heat. Sleuth not only has 2 approaches, but they can also be used in juggles that Sleuth can start itself. Smasher's long windup big damage move that also guard breaks can start juggles, which it can also extend. Sake's Fire Breath? Nah, never mind. Both of Tiger's skills, not S2B, are armored and lead to better results. Tiger's approach is armored and can start juggles with enough heat, and the uppercut starts juggles. Bandit's approach allows you to get off in a 1 string or a juggle, and if you have enough heat, both. Clinch's approach really isn't even an approach, and I mean, Aiki's has a bigger reward, but Clinch's is still easier to get and is more generally consistent. And all of these is without mentioning that all of these styles have more combos than Aiki could ever dream of, and I forgot to write it in my script, but Clinch's approach can also start juggles. Fuck! My point is, Aiki is outclassed. Every single style is better than it, and its few advantages can be easily dismissed. Overall, Aiki is just generally pretty ass. It's got pretty much everything going against it, with little going for it realistically, especially against better players who know all this and abuse it against people who don't, who are unfortunate enough to be using Aiki. But does that stop me? No. So, after all that, I hope you can recognize why I don't think Aiki is all that good. Especially after Volk removed its S1B and made several more nerfs to Aiki as a whole, it's become underrated and widely seen as brain dead by even good players. But I have fun with it anyway. Thanks for watching. This is my first video that's really a deep dive into anything. I mean, it wasn't a deep dive, but it'll do. Consider subscribing, liking the video, commenting to boost it, etc. Maybe I'll make an Aiki tips video. That'd be fun, maybe. That all being said, I hope you learned something. Have a good day or night wherever you are, and stay safe.